just a gift from God. And I never realized until then how very special she was to me and how she's imparted so much in my life and made me realize some things about myself. And I would always say to her, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to be just like you. And she would say back to me, no, when I grow up, I'm going to be just like you. And she always would call me Mom Deb. And I'm like, you know, I was always told if somebody is 20 years older than you, you always put a handle on it. And you always called them Miss. So I always called her Miss Alma, but she would call me Mom Deb. And I'm like, what is this, Miss Alma? You older than me. How you going to be calling me Mom Deb? She would give me that look. Everybody who knew and loved her knew that look. She would cut that eye. And although she was a loving person and sweet as she could be, Miss Alma was feisty. Don't get it twisted. And that's what she would say. Don't get it twisted. And so she is going to be sorely missed, but her legacy lives on. Her legacy lives on because during her 92 years, she has planted much seed. And everyone in here was part of the seed that she has planted. And her garden will continue to grow. And her garden will continue to grow and be watered by her beloved daughter, Sheila, who stood by her and was always there for her. I mean, she was just such a loving daughter during all the time that I've known Sheila. She's been such a loving daughter, and I know that her legacy lives on within. And Sheila, I love you. You know that we're all here for you if there's anything we can do. I thank your mom for loving my son. I didn't like having to share him. I really didn't. And I tell you, when he first called her mom, I was and the funniest thing is after on their wedding day, and the video was taken. The last clip on the video was me, and this is how I look. But Miss Mearion, I love you, and I always remember you. And Mr. Tom, you were and show such an example of a husband, a loving husband. And one of the things that Mr. Mearion always said, and that I will always remember, I watched how he doted over her, and sometimes Miss Alma, she could cut that eye and everything, but he just still remained like this. And he said to me, and I will never forget, he said, never be harsh. Never be harsh. So I love you guys. Ed, and to the family, God bless you. We love you.
Now, all of that comes from the woman who does not like a mic in her face. She hates it. But I just can say basically just ditto to everything that my wife has said. I've always enjoyed being in the presence of Tom and Alma, and especially when I'm around Tom. He is a man of tremendous wisdom. We have some exhilarating conversations, and it seems like the two of us get together, we just start talking, and the hours just start going by as we're talking. But he shared a story with me about the two of them from back some years ago, of course, and Tom had gone downtown for an appointment this particular day, and he went downtown and was at his appointment, but there were no parking spaces, so Alma was driving around the block. She's driving around, couldn't find no parking space, so she kept driving around. Finally, Tom finishes his appointment, and he comes out, and Alma, at that particular time, he hadn't seen her, so he stood there, and being the loving, warm-hearted husband that he is, he stood there for hours. He stood there for hours, waiting for her, and then he called the house, and she was at home. And he said, well, what are you doing at home? She said, well, I couldn't find no parking space, so I figured you figured it out. and he finally made his way home, but man, I'll tell you, they have had some wonderful experiences with one another. And And Tom, I tell you, if you don't mind me telling this, but this is, so Tom was also having a conversation with Sheila at some point early on in their lives, and he's talking to Sheila, and Sheila was telling him about what she knew, and you know how she was going to do this, and she was going to do that. So he said he got a piece of paper, and he tore a little piece off the edge of the paper, and he gave it to Sheila. And he said, Sheila, now what I want you to do is write on this piece of paper everything you know. That you don't know, that you don't know. Everything you don't know, right. But oh my gosh. I mean, man, this man has had some amazing experiences, things that he has shared with me. And so, Tom, without a doubt, please know that as much as we are here celebrating Alma today, we celebrate you. We celebrate you. And for the fact being that in this day, when so many men are walking away from their families, you stayed. And we bless God for you now. So we're going to ask at this time that everyone, would you please, if you don't mind, would you please stand and let us receive the patriarch of this family in the person of Tom Mearion.
Alma and I met when she was sitting on a bench in front of her dormitory at Tuskegee Veteran Hospital. The date was September the 28th at 7 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening. I walked up, and before 15 minutes passed in talking to her, I pointed at her, I said, I'm going to marry you. Now, there were two people who didn't believe that. That was Alma and myself. That was on a Sunday. I went back Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But then Thursday, I said, well, maybe I'm doing too much here. I'm posting things. She may want to see someone else. So I had went across the street from the campus. I went across the street to the rec room to shoot some pool. And I finally looked up and I saw this person coming. And it was her. And I said to myself, that girl must like me. So I saw her back to her dormitory. And I was had material from the Tuskegee, Miss Tuskegee for homecoming. And I made her an outfit. And when she stepped out, heads turned. Men looked. Women looked. And they wrote back to Mississippi and said, she doesn't come up here and man doesn't make her clothes. And she was just so beautiful. Now, if you see that haircut, I cut her hair, I made her clothes, I do her fingernails. We were just loving from day one. I went to her graduation, and unfortunately, we got there a little late. But when I got there, she was marching in, and she broke that line and ran to me. And I said again, she must love me. I came back to Tuskegee and came home. I'm from Georgia, Louisville, Georgia. And while I was there, I noticed my brother and his wife was visiting from Philadelphia. And my mother, she called me T.S. She said, T.S., why don't you go back to Philadelphia with Jimmy? And she kept saying that, and I agreed to come back. Now, you can see what I would have missed if I had I came here, and then I noticed we came in July, and then I noticed in August that our birthday was on the same date. So I sent her a gift to Mississippi, and she had gone to Chicago working at Cook County Hospital. And I don't know how we communicated. I'm gonna tell you, I can't remember how we communicated. But we communicated enough for me to go down to Bars Jewelry and buy a set of rings, and then buy me a $48 round trip ticket to Chicago. And I took those rings and gave them to her. She came to Philadelphia. We ended up at 13th and Arch on the second floor in the office of the Justice of Peace. And when he said everything he had to say, and we said what we had to say, which was, I do. And we caught a trolley and came up 13th Street. She got off at Girard and caught the number 15 going to my brother's place, and I kept on to work. I worked. And when people ask me, why did you go to work on the day you got married? I would tell them, if you allow me to use this last 2022, I would tell them, say, I needed money because we were going on a 69-year and 8-month honeymoon. I asked my son the other day, I didn't ask Sheila yet, but do you ever remember being angry with your mother? I don't remember being angry with her. I don't remember. If I was, I can't remember. And that's the way we live, because she was the baby of her family, I was the baby of my family, and I had to treat her like she was the baby of my family. So she was my baby until the night that she passed. And I say to her, and I quote, I paraphrase what Charles Chaplin said. He said, I love you purely, truly, sincerely, and unselfishly. And if God has chosen, I shall love thee after death. And the sweetest flower, that love, I give to you as we. For me, it's on the road. But for you, it's my heart. So, darling, I know you're resting in peace. Peace.
Come on, let's give God major praise for that. Wow. 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 Wow, wow, wow. Whew. 69-year and 8-month honeymoon. Wow. It's amazing stuff. Like I said, Tom Mearion is just filled with such wisdom. 94 years old. But I also have to say this to you too, Tom. You just messed it up for every man in this room. Tom. You messed it up for every married man. Because, man, you set the bar so high, bro. Wow. Man, doing the fingernails, toenails, all the good gosh, man. Wow. Man, I can imagine what the conversation is going to be like in some of them cars going home today. Did you hear that? Man, let's give God praise for love, y'all. My God. Wow. Well, we're coming near to the end of our celebration, but before we go today, many of our family have gathered here today. Many of the Coleman family, in fact, some have even flown in from other places, and we cannot thank the Lord enough for them. And our son, Darius, is here today. He came in from Los Angeles, and we thank God that he's here. And so we're going to ask Darius if he would come and minister to us in song at this time. And then following the ministry of song by our son Darius, then my beloved son, Pastor Rashid Coleman, angel of this house, is going to come and to give us the eulogy for today. I ask that everyone except the family would please stand as Pastor Rashid comes today, all right? Come on, let's give God praise for Darius.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Or it's probably afternoon now, so it's maybe not morning. It's morning to me still, though, because I'm still on Pacific time, so it's about 9 a.m. in my body. But, wow, there's so many things that come back to my mind about Miss Alma. Just her wit and her humor, obviously her incredible style, which I complimented her on all the time, every time I saw her. But just to hear from you, Mr. Tom, like, what an incredible I mean, that is hands down one of the best. I don't even know. It's like, it's almost like a movie. Just hearing your articulation of all of it with such clarity, that is remarkable. I can only pray to experience something as dynamic as that in my lifetime, because wow. So they didn't know I was coming, and I know I was singing, so we both got surprised. But we going to do a little something, yeah. So as the deer panted for the waters of my soul, longeth after thee, and you alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Oh, as the deer panted for the waters, oh, my soul, it longeth after thee. And you alone, you are my heart's desire, and I long. All I do is long to worship thee. For you alone are my strength To you alone does my spirit yield. Said you alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee, for you alone are my strength, and you've always been my shield. And to you alone does my spirit yield. So you alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh Lord, we praise your name, and we give you all the glory, all the praise. Said, oh Lord, we praise your name. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh Lord, we praise your name. But I don't know the glory and all the praise. Oh Lord, we praise your name.
We bless the Lord for his goodness and for the way that he continues to extend to us his love, his grace, and his mercy. You can have your seats if you can. I'm going to do my best to make this brief but impactful. And I have to be really candid. In my 29 years of ministry, this will be my first literal eulogy. Most times when I serve in this capacity, I'm ministering on behalf of a family. But today is personal. And I've been through a battery of emotions, as I'm certain many of my family can relate to. My brother Darius, he just shared one of the sentiments of my own heart is that I watched the most beautifully painful experience of my life. Because dad and mom's relationship up to the very last breath was a love story. And I have to tell you all that I'm reminded in these moments that as we face death, we who remain, we do not weep because of death. We weep because we're trying to make sense of life. We're attempting to understand how we will go on, how we can be whole, how we can make sense of all of this in the midst of a piece of us seemingly being taken away. Now, we live in what I like to think of or call, we live in an age of windows. I don't mean literal windows. I mean, there are many of us who, when we sit in front of the screens in our hands, in the screens on our desktops, in the larger screens in our living rooms, our sitting rooms, our basements, our man caves, etc., we are in a world of windows at which many of us play the parts of digital voyeurs. Because unfortunately, we also live in an age of discontentment, where there are many espousing goals and aspirations that are not personally created. They're quite often adopted from what we believe is the status quo in society. And because of this, many of us pierce ourselves through with many sorrows because we're chasing the things that the world seemingly has deemed important. I mean, be quite honest, I have a unique privilege, I count it a privilege, to support families and guide families through one of the most trying times of their lives. It's why I have to take a moment to just extend my love and to openly recognize some of my family who wasn't namely mentioned today, in the person of my brother Sahir, my niece Tamisha, my great nieces Mira, Kabira. I think it's important because I've watched God do something in the midst of what could be deemed the greatest tragedy in the Mearion family. I've watched God move in his love, in his providence, to put back together something that was not completely whole. No one could convince me we don't serve a good God. So I hope to encourage all of us, Dad, Babe, Zaire, Tamisha, Sierra, Dahlia, Cheryl, Cousin Mary, G, like all of our family, Caleb, Kyla. While we experience the pain of loss, I pray that we focus on what God has given us. And he's given us an opportunity to love each other and to remove all distance and space that may have existed. For that, I'm forever grateful. I feel the sting of Mom's transition But I promise you, I thank God I've gained a brother, and his children, they're my family. As I support families, I'm gonna be honest, I've never spoken to anybody in the face of transition who wanted to regale me with everything they've achieved. Nobody says, Pastor, do you know I did this? And do you know I set this record? And do you know this is in my asset portfolio? And let me show you how many rooms my house has. No one has ever said that to me. No one has ever said, Pastor, you gotta see my car. It's the most treasured thing I own. Look at the features. Just go ahead and put your hand on it. Experience the curves and the contours. I know you've been wanting to. No one has ever said that. No one has ever said, come into my den so you can see all of my degrees and diplomas hanging on the walls. No one has ever said that. But do you know what I run into every time? I don't care what culture, what ethnicity, how old they are, to the youngest in the family, everybody is confronted with three of the same questions. Today, maybe we could discuss that really briefly. The first question is, did I live? The second question is, did I love? And the last question is, did I matter? All of us want to know. Now, I have to tell you, Mom, she lived. If life were an apple, she took a full bite. I will never forget, this is some 28 years ago now. I was just newly dating the love of my life, and I was at her house, and it was at least after 10 by this point, and there was a strange vibe going on. Y'all gotta understand, I grew up, the apostle and Mom Deb raised me and my siblings. So after a certain point, you know, phone calls weren't met with warmth and welcome. They was trying to figure out who is this and do you know what time it is? Some of y'all parents like my parents. I think that's my way now. I think that's where I get it from. I'm trying to figure out, do you know what time it is? But there was a vacuum cleaner going. It's like almost 11 o'clock. And we down there had this nook in the kitchen. And I remember hearing some footsteps coming down the stairs. And I saw well, she wasn't my mother-in-law then, but just like Dad, I knew I was going to marry my wife the moment I saw her walking around for offering in church. Right? Yeah, Cheryl will have you believe Sheila came to freedom for me. I promise you I married her because she didn't. She was after Christ because only Christ could satisfy what she was looking for. I bring that up because as my mother-in-law was coming down the stairs, she was dressed to the nines. Sharp. And I remember, like, looking at my wife, I said, babe, is she getting ready to go out? She was like, oh, yeah. Like, it was nothing. Oh, yeah. They get ready to go out. They heading down AC. They going to have a good time. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, Mom lived. Mom loved to travel. She loved the light. She loved to take in the sounds. She loved to be around the energy. And I'm here to tell you, Mom lived. But I'm going to tell you, Mom, in all of her living, in all of her service to others, let me tell y'all something. She really tapped into what life really is when she deepened her relationship with the Lord. And I don't know if any of you are aware, but while we think that life will begin when we find our love story, That life will begin when we find Mr. Right, Mrs. Right. That life will begin when I finally get all the right money that I've always dreamed of having. That life will begin when I finally get my luxury car. That's going to be it. Life will begin when I'm doing my thing and people are screaming my name. We think that's life, but I'm here to tell you, Jesus, he says in the Gospel of John, the 10th chapter, the 10th verse, he said, "The thief cometh but to steal and to kill and to destroy." He said, "But I am come that they might have life and that they might have life more abundantly." Now, I know some of us, we might misinterpret what Jesus said, and we thought what he meant was we were going to have abundance in life. But no, what he's saying is that if you don't have me, you've not yet tapped into life at all. You are merely existing. That's why you're chasing paper, you're chasing the bag, you're chasing significance, you're chasing power. He said, no, it's in me. Mom found that out. That's why those frequent visits to those places that buzz with life became lesser and less. Because once you find Christ that is your life, you're no longer looking for thrills. I've jumped out of planes to find it. I've jumped off of scaffolds in bungee cords to find it. I've gone down 0-degree slides to find it. I was a thrill seeker. Almost cost me my life, and I'm here to tell you, when I found Christ, I found life, and now all of that is settled. If you're going to live, you're going to have to find life. Because even Jesus, when he's talking to his disciples, he had to remind them, he said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me." Now, I'm gonna tell y'all, many people, when you hear that, you think that that is a religious statement, that that's a Christian doctrinal statement. Now, I'm here to tell you that's a universal truth. That Christ is more than just a person that marks history, that the Christ was in the beginning. He was the Word that was in the beginning, that was with God, and that was God. It's that Word that created all things, and without that Word that is Christ, nothing was made. See, it's when we find that Christ that we realize that we can't be made whole by things without us. That's why if we find one thing, it's going to lead us to the pursuit of the next, because they only temporarily resolve what's going on inside of us. If you feel like you got a hole in your heart, only Christ can fill it. If you feel like you've got anxiety in your mind and that you're broken psychologically, only Christ can put you back together. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And then Paul, he says in Philippians 1:21, he says, "For to me to live is Christ, and to die is gain." See, Mom knew that. Mom lived. And then it's going to be on all of us, family. We too, we're going to have to decide, are we going to live? Now, let me tell you the marker of knowing you're living is whose life are you intentionally impacting for the better. That if we're going to live, if we're really going to serve meaning or feel that we have meaning in life, you're going to have to make an investment in people's lives, and you're going to have to do it intentionally. And you're going to have to do it against what you perceive to be your right mind. Because I'm going to tell y'all something, people can interestingly find a way to disappoint even when you don't think they will. We're going to have to decide that we're going to make somebody's life better because we're in it. Then I found out this question of, did I love? I'm going to tell y'all something. We all want to know, have I been loved? But when you come to the end, your greatest question is, did I love? You know what people ask me? And what they say with regret at the end of it all? "Pastor, I sure do hope that so-and-so knows I love them." People say, "Pastor, my greatest regret is that I didn't call so-and-so when I was thinking about them." They say, "Pastor, my greatest regret is that I let the disagreement the misunderstandings stand for 30, 40, 50 years, and I did nothing to make up the hedge. I did nothing to make that relationship right. I'm here to tell you, if you're asking, did I love? Then I want you to know, we might be able to learn something from Matthew 22. I believe it's like verses 37 through 40, and there's a lawyer that comes to Jesus and they ask, Lord, what's the greatest of the commandments? He said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, and all thy soul. He said, and the second commandment is like unto the first. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And then it goes on and ends with this. He says, and all the law and the prophets are comprehended, that they are made up, they are fulfilled in those two commands. I want y'all to know everything about this journey is about love. And let me tell you something, love is what we do. It's the choice we make when we extend ourselves lovingly to those we think don't deserve it. Love is not a down payment on some future act of reciprocity. No, love is the extension of ourselves to those who have been merciless towards us, to those who have treated us treacherously. And why? Because the only mastery that we'll ever exercise is the mastery over ourselves. To, watch this, to take power over our own spirit. So there's some people in here today that, just like mom, I'm going to show y'all what happened. Watch this, as she's making her transition, she's making sure that relationships that have been broken, that they were mended. She's in her deathbed, y'all, and she's mending those broken relationships and looking into her grandchildren's eyes and telling them, I love you. If you've been waiting on somebody to approach you to heal the relationship, don't wait for them, because we don't know what a day's going to bring forth. Now, you pick up the phone. You be the agent or the agency of love. You reach out. You extend the olive branch. You make the relationship right. Because when it's all said and done, you want to be able to know within yourself that, yes, I did love. Yes, I did dare to love. Yes, I did dare to put my heart on the line and risk being hurt. Now, I know many of us, we say, well, how do you love like that? Well, I'm going to tell you that all we have to understand is when we come to God, God is love. According to 1 John 4, God is love and love is of God. Watch this. He says, how can you say you love me whom you have not seen if you don't love your brother who you see every day? It means we're going to have to humble ourselves. We're going to have to climb down off our high horse. We're going to have to put our ego aside for a second. And we just going to have to open our hearts up to people, and we're going to have to let them in. For some of us, the greatest strength we're ever going to know is that we love those that the world has deemed unlovable. Interestingly, sometimes they share our last name. That's when love hurts the worst, because we don't expect to experience those kinds of difficulties, challenges, misunderstandings, disruptions, or disharmonies in our love connections, not with people that we share blood with. Now, God is saying, if you want to satisfy that question, remember this, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish, but they'll have everlasting life. All we got to do is receive Christ into our hearts, and then the love quotient, watch this, because of this reintegration with God in a spirit of oneness, now we'll be able to love with the same love that he is. Do you see this? This is the love I watched shared between my father and my mother as he held her hand as she asked him, "Tom's gonna leave me." He said, "Baby, I'm not going nowhere." He held her hand, looking intensely and deeply into her eyes as she made her transition and took her last breath, I'm here to tell you, you want to be able to get to that place in your life where there is no question, you know that you loved. Now, that may not satisfy, did anybody love you back? It may not satisfy, did anybody care about you the way you cared for them? What you're going to be able to die with is knowing, I did. My love was perfect, and therefore I was fearless when I left here. Final question is, did I matter? I don't know. I don't care how old you are, what your background is. All of us, we want to know we matter. We want to know that our life has meaning to somebody. We want to know that somebody's going to miss us when we're getting ready to leave this place. And I'm here to tell y'all something, that if you were ever questioning if you mattered, I think Jeremiah 29, verse 11, bears it out. God says, I know the thoughts that I have towards you, I think towards you. They're thoughts of peace, not of evil, to give you an expected end. Family, you know what I found out? People can be fickle. People can be sometimey. People can say they love you today and despise you and bite your back out tomorrow. I'm here to tell you, what people do and how they show up is none of your business. Watch this. If people have been that way to you, if your family has deemed you the black sheep of the family, if you get no love amongst those you feel like you should get unconditional love, I want you to know you matter to God. You're on his mind. Watch this. He said, I know the thoughts that I have about you. You're on God's mind. He knows you by name. He knows where you are. You matter. You matter so much, he sent you with a specific plan and a purpose on your life. Because that's why he said, I'm going to do peace by you. I'm not going to bring evil upon you. I'm not going to harm you. I'm bringing you to my expected end for your life. You matter to God. So if you've been suffering with sadness or depression, if you've been wondering, does anybody care? I want you to know, even if you don't have a single soul on this earth, you matter to God. And if you matter to God, you matter indeed. I'm here to tell you that now, just as mom lived and loved and knew she mattered, and watch this, we heard a number of people say today, if you were in relationship with mom, you knew you were loved. Do you see this? How many people are we conveying that same feeling, that same context of acceptance, that same fellowship in relationship? Because watch this, we will matter most to the people that we benefit and provide value to throughout the days that we have. I'm closing with this. I remember Dr. Willie Jolly, he once said that service is the rent that we pay for the time we spend here on earth. And I pray that every one of us, that we come to the realization you are here for a specific and a divine purpose. And I want everybody, if you felt all by yourself, if you felt like your life don't matter, if you felt like there's no way I could live, gotta close with this. In John 11:25, Jesus says something, because there's some of us, we say, well, preacher, you know what? You don't know what my past is like. You saying all that stuff now, but you don't know how vicious I've been. You don't know how poisonous my mouth has been. You don't know how divisive I've been in my past. You don't know the struggles I've gone to. You know what Jesus says in John 11:25? He says, I am the resurrection and the life. He said, although you were dead, now you live because of me. I'm here to tell you that God, being the resurrection, he can bring you back. He can restore that which was broken. He can bring back that which you feel was lost, that which you thought it was hopeless and there was no way out. God is saying that I am that life after death. So if it's you and you saying, you know what? I need that Christ. I need to know that love. I need to know that life. I need to know that I matter. If it's you, all you got to do is stand where you are. You can receive this Christ into your heart and into your life. All you got to do is stand. And all we're going to do is pray that the Lord come into your heart, that he will dine with you and fulfill you through and through. All you got to do is stand. If you're going to live, if you're going to love, if you're going to matter, it's in him. Just stand where you are. You can do it now. This is your moment. It's your opportunity. See, Mom did all of this. She lived her life as unto the Lord. She extended the love of God in all those relationships. She lived her life to the full, which now inspires all of us to take up that mantle, to live just as she did. And then finally, she left all of us the legacy of love that we'll know forever we matter. If it's you, just stand now so you can receive him into your heart and experience this same joy of the Lord's salvation. We've done as the Lord has commanded. We're now getting ready for the final committal and to close out this memorial service in memory of our beloved Mother Alma Mearion. Immediately, if you all could stand as we bring our memorial service to a close, if you all would remember, we're going to recess immediately following the committal outside in the front for the releasing of the dove ceremony. We'd ask everybody to do it safely but speedily. Make your way outside so that anyone who wishes to can share in the releasing of the dove ceremony. For as much as it has pleased Almighty God in his wise providence to take out of this world the soul of our deceased sister, we therefore commit her body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, looking for the general resurrection in the last day and the life of the world to come through our Lord Jesus Christ, and whose second coming in glorious majesty to judge the world, the earth, and the sea shall give up their dead, and the corruptible bodies of those who sleep in him shall be changed and made like unto his own glorious body, according to the mighty working whereby he is able to subdue all things unto himself. I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, write from henceforth, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord, even so saith the Spirit, for they rest from their labors. Now may the love, grace, and peace of Almighty God rest, rule, and abide with you now, henceforth, and forevermore. Amen.
Y'all put your hands together for Pastor. That was a beautiful gift to us all on that day. Thank you. I want to ask you to just stay with us for just a moment. If I might, before we recess, my name is Reverend Keith Hodges, and I'm with the funeral home that this family has gifted us an opportunity to serve you on today. But if I could, I just want to share with you, I have known this family since I was at camp with Sheila when we were about this little. My parents are also graduates of the Tuskegee Institute, and the wisest man that I've ever known in my life was a man by the name of Woodrow Hodges. Had a 4th grade education, and he and Mr. Mearion ended up forging a lifelong relationship and friendship that to this day stands as a meaningful representation and exempling of how men should take care of their families. As we leave this place, brothers, I want to leave you with this. Please, the words that Mr. Mearion has mentioned on today, as I sat at his table with Sheila and Brother Rashid to get this service together, and also my brother, is to make sure that as men, we take care of our families. Mr. Mearion said to me that I've never raised my voice to my wife one time in my life. I have, and so I told Miss Mearion I'm gonna start new that day. But when we got together, we simply wanted this day to be meaningful. Am I right about it? It took some time to get it together, but listen, on behalf of everyone that has come, the ladies that prepared the beautiful memorial tables, I've smelled some beautiful chicken aroma coming up from the repast hall. Those of you that spoke, that sang, the musicians, and Pastor, what a gift from your word. I think I'm going to come worship with you on tomorrow. I believe that what we have done is exactly what we set out to do, is to make sure that this day was meaningful. And brothers and sisters, that is exactly what we have done. So on behalf of the family, thank you. We love you with the God and the love of Jesus. I'm going to ask Brother Tim to come on. Mr. Mearion, we got to get you started so that you can make your way down for this dove presentation. So we're going to have you stand now, please. And then we'll walk you on out. Your son-in-law will get you. Sheila will get you. Everyone be patient for just a moment. So Mr. Mearion, I know he's been sitting for a while. He's got to get those limbs moving just a little bit. And Apostle, thank you, brother. So we're all going to gather outside. There is a beautiful symbolic dove released. And then all of you are invited to come back and down to the fellowship hall so you all can break bread in remembrance of Miss Alma.